In the sun-baked badlands of the Arizona Territory, where the red earth split open like scarred hide under a merciless sun, a man named Jack Harlan scratched out a living on a stubborn patch of land that refused to yield much beyond dust and disappointment. His spread lay in a forgotten corner near the Mexican border, too arid for decent grazing, too remote for company. A dozen half-starved longhorns wandered his fences, and a few rows of corn wilted in the heat beside a sagging adobe cabin patched with whatever timber drifted down the arroyos after rare floods. Jack was 35, lean and weathered, his face carved deep with lines earned from drought, debt, and the quiet grief of burying his young wife Sarah 5 years earlier when fever took her in a single burning night. He had no children, no partners, only an old mule called Bess and the habit of talking to the wind when the loneliness grew too sharp. Folks in the distant settlement of Dust Creek called his place cursed, for it sat perilously close to Chiricahua Apache country. Raids still flared along the border, and newspapers carried lurid tales of ambushes and burned wagons. Yet Jack stayed. He had claimed the homestead after the war between the states, seeking something quieter than battlefields, and he would not be driven off his dirt without a fight. Each dawn he rose, mended what the wind had broken, chased coyotes from the calves, and scanned the horizon for clouds that never came. One furnace-hot afternoon in the summer of 1875, Jack rode the fence line with Bess plodding beneath him, sweat stinging his eyes. A low rumble rolled across the flats, strange because the sky stretched empty and blue from horizon to horizon. He turned toward the sound and spurred the mule up a rocky spine that overlooked Devil's Throat, a narrow canyon usually dry as bone. What he saw stopped his breath. A wall of muddy water roared down the wash, born of distant mountain storms, carrying brush, boulders, and the full fury of a flash flood. In the middle of the torrent, two figures clung to a half-submerged rock that shuddered with every blow from the current. They were women, Apache women by their dress, but no ordinary women. Each stood taller than any man Jack had ever seen, giants in buckskin, their long black hair whipping like war banners in the spray. The taller one braced herself against the rock, one massive arm locked around her companion, who sagged with pain, blood darkening the fringe of her tunic. The flood clawed at them, rising inch by inch, hungry to sweep them away. Jack's first instinct was caution. Apaches were enemies in every story told around campfires, but the sight of two human beings facing death overrode every warning whispered in Dust Creek saloons. He swung down from Bess, uncoiled his lariat, and knotted one end to the saddle horn while anchoring the other around a gnarled mesquite rooted deep in the ridge. He shouted over the roar, words lost in the thunder of water, then edged down the crumbling canyon wall, boots skidding on loose shale. The taller sister looked up, eyes fierce as a hawk's, a livid scar slashing her cheek from brow to jaw. She was 6'8" if she was an inch, broad-shouldered and powerful, yet graceful even in peril. Her sister, perhaps 6'5", pressed a hand to a bullet graze along her ribs, teeth clenched against the pain. Bandits, Jack guessed. Renegades who plagued the border without regard for flag or tribe. He swung the loop of rope toward them. The tall one caught it cleanly on the second toss, her grip iron strong. She looped it first under her wounded sister's arms, then around her own waist. Jack hauled with everything he had, heels dug into the slope, Bess leaning back against the pull. The rock beneath the women groaned and shifted, a chunk shearing away into the flood. For a heartbeat Jack thought they were lost, but the sisters climbed hand over hand, water tearing at their legs, until strong hands grasped the ledge and they rolled onto solid ground gasping and soaked. Up close their size was even more astonishing. The taller one rose to her full height, towering over Jack like an ancient cottonwood over scrub brush. She studied him with wary intelligence, water streaming from her braids. "Why help Apache?" she asked in careful English, voice deep and steady. Jack wiped spray from his face. "Didn't look like the water cared whether you were Apache or white. Come on, my place isn't far. That wound needs tending." They hesitated, pride warring with necessity, but the injured sister swayed and the taller one nodded once. They followed on foot while Jack led Bess, the mule protesting the extra burden when the wounded woman climbed aboard for the last mile. At the cabin Jack boiled water, poured whiskey over the graze, and stitched it closed with steady hands while the tall sister watched every move, her knife never far from reach. When the work was done she spoke again. "I am Nita. This is Kaya, my sister. You saved our lives, white man. That is no small thing." Jack shrugged, uncomfortable with gratitude. "Name's Jack Harlan. Anybody decent would have done the same." Nita's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Not anybody." Night fell cool and starred. The sisters slept in the barn loft while Jack kept watch from the porch, rifle across his knees. He told himself it was caution, but part of him marveled at the strangeness of hosting two Apache giantesses under his roof. Dawn brought no pursuit, and over the following days an unlikely rhythm settled over the ranch. Kaya's fever broke quickly, Apache constitution, Jack figured, or sheer will. As strength returned, the sisters refused idleness. Nita hauled fallen timbers to repair the corral as though they were kindling, her laughter ringing when Jack stared open-mouthed. Kaya's keen eyes spotted a seep hidden beneath creosote that promised a trickle of water if dug deeper, a gift more precious than gold in that parched land. Evenings found them under the single cottonwood beside the cabin, sharing meager meals of cornbread, jerky, and rabbits snared with Apache cunning. Conversation grew easier. Nita spoke of their band led by their father, Chief Taza, a leader respected even by enemies for wisdom and ferocity. She described mountain strongholds where water ran clear and game still roamed, places soldiers could never find. Kaya, quieter, told of childhood races across high meadows, of learning bow and lance before most girls learned to weave. In return Jack spoke of Sarah, of dreams that had withered with the crops, of nights when the wind sounded like her voice calling from the grave. He taught them poker with a battered deck, they taught him Apache words for stars and wind and the secret signs animals leave on sand. Laughter came more often, startling Jack with its brightness in a house long silent. Nita's scar, earned defending her sister from a mountain lion when they were girls, became a tale told with pride rather than warning. Kaya braided a horsehair rope stronger than any Jack had owned. For the first time in years the ranch felt alive. On the fifth evening dust rose far out on the plain, riders coming fast. Jack reached for his Winchester, pulse hammering. Nita shaded her eyes. "Not bandits," she said. "Our people." A dozen warriors swept in, ponies lathered, feathers and rifles gleaming. At their head rode a broad man with silver threading his braids, his presence quieting even the wind. Chief Taza dismounted with fluid power and embraced his daughters fiercely, words tumbling in rapid Apache. When the reunion eased he turned to Jack, dark eyes measuring. "You are the one who pulled my daughters from the water," Taza said in careful English. "Nita and Kaya speak highly of you. Few white men would risk that." Jack lowered his rifle but kept it ready. "They needed help. That's all." Taza studied the cabin, the thin cattle, the cracked earth. "Yet you have little, and still you gave aid. Come, we will talk by fire." Warriors kindled a blaze in the yard as stars wheeled overhead. Taza passed a pipe, Jack accepted, smoke sealing a fragile trust. The chief spoke of ancient laws, a life saved created a debt deeper than blood. Nita and Kaya were not merely daughters, born under rare twin stars, they were considered touched by power, warriors whose strength protected the band. To save them bound Jack in ways he could scarcely comprehend. Then came the offer that turned the night upside down. Taza's voice was calm, yet every warrior leaned forward. "Your land struggles. You live alone, like a ghost. Join us. Become brother to our people. Marry one of my daughters, Nita or Kaya, whichever your heart chooses. Bring your courage and your rifle. Together we stand against soldiers, bandits, drought itself." Jack felt the world tilt. Marriage to an Apache woman, giant or not, was unthinkable in white settlements. He would be branded renegade, hunted by cavalry, shunned forever. Yet when he glanced at Nita, her eyes held steady warmth beneath the fierceness, and Kaya offered a shy half-smile that softened her massive frame. The ranch, his stubborn dream, lay dying around him. Before he could answer, gunfire cracked from the ridge. Bullets whined overhead, splintering the corral. "Banditos!" Nita shouted, already moving. 15 hard cases charged down the slope, led by a scar-faced outlaw called El Diablo, seeking revenge for comrades the sisters had killed days earlier. Apache warriors fanned out with practiced grace, arrows humming. Jack dropped behind the water trough, levering rounds as fast as he could work the Winchester. Nita fought like legend come alive, using her reach to club a rider from the saddle, then firing captured pistols with deadly calm. Kaya, wound barely scabbed, wrestled another bandit to earth and ended the struggle with a knife thrust born of pure fury. El Diablo himself bore down on Jack, machete raised, screaming curses in Spanish. Jack rolled aside, the blade biting deep into the trough. He fired twice, the outlaw toppled, eyes wide in surprise. With their leader down, the remaining bandits broke, fleeing into darkness pursued by vengeful arrows. Silence settled, broken only by labored breathing and the low moans of wounded. Taza clasped Jack's shoulder, blood from a shallow graze on the chief's arm dripping unnoticed. "You fought as one of us," he said simply. "The spirits have decided for you." Nita stepped close, taller than Jack even when he straightened fully. She touched the blood on his sleeve where a bullet had grazed him. "Choose life, Jack Harlan," she said softly. "Choose us." In that moment, with smoke drifting under starlight and the ranch yard strewn with fallen enemies, Jack felt the last chains of his old loneliness snap. He nodded. "I choose Nita," he said, voice steady. "I'll ride with you. But this land, it stays ours. A place to return to." Taza's rare smile broke wide. "Then it is sacred ground to us all." Days later, beneath a crescent moon, Jack and Nita spoke vows blending Apache chant and simple frontier promise, Kaya standing witness with proud tears shining. The band accepted Jack without reservation. His deed in the flood and his stand against the bandits earned respect no white man had known among them before. Yet peace was fleeting on the border. Word spread of the rancher gone renegade, married to a giant Apache warrior woman. Cavalry patrols probed closer, seeking to stamp out the unnatural alliance. Bandit gangs, humiliated by defeat, nursed grudges. But Jack found purpose he had never known. Riding beside Nita, her laughter rolling across canyons, he learned to move like shadow, to read the land as Apaches did. Kaya became the sister he never had, teaching him to throw a lance with startling accuracy despite his smaller frame. They struck supply trains not for greed but survival, sharing captured flour and coffee with starving Mexican villages and hardscrabble white homesteads alike. Tales grew, the giant sisters and their white husband who dealt justice where law feared to tread. Soldiers cursed the name Harlan, Apache children sang it around campfires. One autumn night a lone rider came under flag of truce, bearing a letter sealed with government wax. Peace talks were called in Washington. Delegates sought voices from both sides. Taza was invited, and with him Jack and his warrior wife, proof that bridges could be built across the widest chasms. As they rode north under gathering clouds that finally promised rain, Jack looked back once at the little ranch now ringed with new fences and a spring flowing clear. Nita's hand rested warm on his arm, Kaya riding scout ahead, Taza leading with quiet pride. The poor rancher who had saved 2 giant sisters had found something richer than gold, a family fierce and vast as the desert itself, and a future unwritten under wide western skies.